Dr. Laurie Hess, this is not Dr. Hess right here, is the author of Unlikely Companions. And you know what? For many, snakes are unlikely companions, Dr. Hess. But for some, they're really not. So I'm holding a boa constrictor, or maybe better put, the boa constrictor is holding me. But can this snake, who's about, if we were to stretch out the snake about 4 feet long, is this a good pet and a pet that people can actually bond with?
Definitely snakes are pets that you can bond with. No doubt about that.
Explain that.
Well, I mean, they absolutely recognize their owners. I have many owners of reptiles tell me that their animals see them when they come into the room, and they hear their voices and they know them. And, you know, snakes don't have ears, but they sense vibration and they can definitely see very well. So they know who feeds them and who takes care of them and who handles them and, you know, is with them every day. So absolutely, it doesn't have to be a fuzzy pet. You know, reptiles are great pets for people and they live a really long time, as you know, because you have a reptile.
I indeed do, although I don't have a pet snake. So there are certain responsibilities. For one thing, this pet snake doesn't eat manufactured food so much.
No, that's a good point.
So what does a large snake, or a fairly large snake, because some snakes are much bigger than this, but what does a boa constrictor, for example, eat?
A snake this size probably eats rats. Smaller snakes will eat mice of various sizes and developmental stages. And unfortunately, some bigger snakes might even eat a rabbit. And depending upon what you have to be prepared to meet their needs. And for some people, that's not a big deal. And for other people, it is. So you really need to think about this before you go out and get a snake.
A starter reptile, particularly a snake, it seems to me that a corn snake, a rainbow boa, which is a much smaller version of this snake, might be, especially if there's kids in the house, a better idea.
Definitely. Those are both good choices. Red-tailed boas can be fine. Ball pythons can be fine. Yes. Those are all examples of smaller, generally docile, good-natured snakes, and, you know, that are handleable with kids, maybe at elementary school and older age, not really little teeny kids. All kids should be supervised when they're handling reptiles. And we want to remember when we're talking about reptiles that they all carry salmonella. So we want to wash hands. And I definitely remind all my clients who have kids to do that. We even put a little antiseptic hand pump next to the tank so they remember to do it when they're handling the animals. But they're really interesting. They're fascinating for kids, teach kids a lot of responsibility, and they're great.
Well, you know what? I mean, you live in New York City. I'm in Chicago. And most people in America now live in a big city somewhere, right? Statistically. To me, an animal like this brings a bit of the natural world into our concrete worlds that we live in.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things to know about these animals, their behavior, they're interesting. They do things like shed skin, which not every animal does, and it's pretty cool. And a snake is supposed to come off in one piece. So it's really interesting for a child to see an animal just slip out of its skin and leave this whole like piece of skin behind.
What is a snake doing when a snake does that, by the way?
It's growing. You know, they grow very, very slowly over the course of years. And as they grow,
lifetime,
absolutely,
really. Yeah. They
shed their skin. They even, in snakes, are really cool because they shed the surface of their eye, their cornea. And, you know, that's kind of a cool thing to watch. It gets really opaque. Sometimes it gets stuck and they have to come to the vet. But it's a really cool process for a child to watch and see how they develop.
As a veterinarian, when is it appropriate for you? So I tell dog and cat owners, every 6 months, see your veterinarian for a checkup. I suspect you'd agree.
I definitely do.
How about a guy like this?
Well, the biggest thing is to get this animal set up properly when they first get this pet, because it obviously needs the proper heat and light, humidity, all those things that are a little different from a dog and cat's environment. You must set them up properly or they'll get sick.
Is that sort of the trick? I mean, you could sell these guys. Yeah. I don't know how much they sell for, but the setup probably costs more than what the snake itself costs.
Yeah, the setup is really important, and it does cost a little bit at the beginning. But if you're consistent and you change your bulb, it's really not a matter of,
change your bulb, meaning you have
change
to
the bulbs,
that.
Yeah. So there are heat bulbs that are required for these guys. They need a temperature gradient, depending upon the species we're talking about. Usually it's somewhere in the low 70s at the cool end and into the 90s in the basking or warm end, like if they were out in the sunshine basking. There is a lot of controversy about ultraviolet light in snakes. Some people believe in it and others don't. I do. There was some studies at Disney a few years ago where they looked at a whole bunch of snakes, those that were exposed to UV light and those that weren't. And even though snakes spend a lot of time in the shade, they seem to do better when they have some exposure to UV light. It helps them make vitamin D in their skin, which helps them extract calcium from their food.
And they're cold-blooded, which in 30 seconds means?
Which means that their body temperature adjusts to their environmental temperature. So you need to keep them warm.
And one reason why snakes often do well under the TV lights, it's nice and warm, right?
They love that. Yes, they do.
Yes. Well, here we have an amazing boa constrictor. The right snake, maybe the right pet for you, maybe not. Dr. Laurie Hess, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've got to go take a walk with my new best friend.